Welcome everyone to the Experiential Learning Night Science Panelist session. My name is Juliana Stonehouse. I am the Student Experience Coordinator. I work in the Department of Careers, Co-op and Experiential Learning, and I'm so pleased to be moderating this panel discussion tonight. As I said earlier, you're in for a real treat. You don't want to hear from me, you want to hear from students who are doing the things that you think that you might be interested in doing and getting a sense of their experience. And it's always so nice to get it right from the source. So that's why we're doing this presentation and this panel discussion tonight. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists. We have Jamie Lenev from the Computer Science Co-op program. I know a lot of you are interested in that. Welcome,
Hello.
Jamie. Then we have Spencer Keeler from Biology. There's Spencer. And then we have Jody Newman representing environmental science. She's going to be talking to you about that, but she does have a bit of a biology background too. So she can answer some questions with that as well. And then we have Kira Parr for forensics biology, another really popular program, and lots of questions in my last session in terms of forensics. So we're so pleased to have Kira here. Kira also happens to be in the medical professional stream as well. So for anybody in the audience that is thinking about the medical professional stream, Kira can speak to that as well. Welcome panelists. Thank you very, very, very much. So how this will go is I have a series of questions that I will ask each of the panelists and they'll go ahead and answer. For our audience tonight, if you do have any questions, if you hear something really exciting or you want to learn more about what one of our panelists said, don't hesitate to put it in the chat. I will be leaving some time at the end of the discussion to go through the chat to answer those questions. Again, if anything interesting comes up also, I'll spend a bit of time talking about some key things, especially those examples of the studies, the research, the hands-on experience that these panelists have taken part in. So I will, without further ado, I'd just like to again thank everybody for being here. We're going to jump right in, and obviously, Jamie, this is for you. So it's the Computer Science Co-op question, very, very popular program. Congratulations on getting in and being so successful in doing so. So Jamie, if you could tell us about what program your EL opportunities your program has allowed you to have, and where you've gone, where you've worked.
I've actually been offered several positions all over, mostly Ontario. I have a friend who actually got a position that was remote because of COVID, but from Nova Scotia. So I've worked this past semester at a non-for-profit organization called EPRA that deals with the recycling of electronics. So I helped deal with bringing up a new system for newly introduced government regulations that were introduced earlier this year. I got to work in Toronto, both remote and in person. And so I got to experience some of the things I learned in my program and apply them in a job. I got to learn about the whole job application process, both applying through a school and through LinkedIn, like you would once you actually leave school and need to start applying for jobs. So going through the whole process and learn how to build resumes, build cover letters, interview well. So skills that aren't just applicable to right now, but also once you graduate.
That's such a great point, Jamie. So, you know, we touched on this in the last session, in the career space session, where no matter what program you're in or what career path you choose, those transferable skills are going to be so incredibly important. And there's all kinds of resources available to students here at Trent to help get started on that. Thanks so much, Jamie. That's wonderful. This one's for you, Spencer. Can you talk about how your hands-on learning experience, you know, you've done some traditional classroom stuff in your first year, and then you've done some stuff outside of the classroom or that hands-on, if it's a lab or what have you. And then how does that relate back to when you're doing the traditional? Can you talk about the relationship between what you learn you know, in a practical sense, and then what you learn in a theoretical sense, and then how that relates to one another.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I really learned through hands-on doing. And so having lecture taught in a classroom setting gives you the information, gives you the background that you need. But for me personally, I find that unless I actually do something with it, it's just information. And it's not until you actually are able to go out and put the work that you put the information you have to work, you're really able to make the connections between all the different aspects of the classes you've taken. And one of the big things for me was genetics. There's a bunch of genetics classes I've taken, and this past summer, working with species at risk, specifically looking at their genetics, I was able to see how the different aspects fit together and the importance of that. And having the hands-on portion made it a lot easier for me to fully grasp the concepts that we were taught.
So it's probably fair to say once you have, you know, when you're coming into a, you know, theoretical classroom situation, it's all well and fine and good to read from the book and do the assignments and the lectures, but then you go outside the classroom, you actually get to put that to work, and then you go back to the classroom, you're like, oh, it's like a light bulb goes off. Oh, I understand this. I get it conceptually, what's happening out there and how it's relating. That's such an important connection to make. Thanks for that. Kira, this one is for you, forensics. How did your EL opportunity stretch and challenge you? Can you talk about the challenges that you've had along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So EL learning is you are hands-on learning, and a lot of the time you're doing things for the very first time. So for example, I had never been in a crime scene before, real or mock, and that was brand new to me. I'd never processed anything, collected evidence or anything like that. So getting those new skills really helped mold me into a forensic science student that I can now apply in a future career should I choose to go the forensic science pathway. But also it allowed me to hone skills such as leadership and communication, because most of the time you're working in a team, you're working with groups. And if you are leading, you are delegating certain tasks to different people, or you're working and collaborating with other students and learning how to work and be part of a team to achieve goals. So having that hands-on in the lab experience was so beneficial.
Yeah. And again, you don't know what you don't know. So you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go do this, you know, hands-on learning thing. And it's just going to be this and this and this. And you get in there and you're realizing that it's so much more complex. And again, with that transferable skill base. And I love that you touched on the, you know, the working within a team, because again, no matter where you find yourself in your career, that teamwork is incredibly important. Thanks, Kira. Well said. Jody, over to you. What benefits have you experienced from your EL experience?
Well, I found that actually working in the field is a lot different than what you learn in the classroom. Sort of in environmental science, we get a lot of the foundational skills within lab work and the field work in the classroom that sort of prepare you to go into the field, but I was kind of struggling to determine what area I actually wanted to work in, because the field is so broad. So I was able to work in ecological restoration, and it actually sort of inspired me to pursue that as a career. So had I not had that experience, I don't think I would have really known what I wanted.
That is such a great point. You don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of students that come to university and they think they know what they're interested in, and sort of in a traditional classroom space, they can be interested in it, but then they get out into the field. And again, you don't know what you don't know. And you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm really interested in that. And then you go ahead and you do that. You're thinking, oh my goodness, here's a whole other door. Here's a whole other realm that is now a possibility that has been opened up to me. So again, like it's a totally different mindset to be sort of in the classroom thinking you know what you want to do, and then going out and doing it and realizing, oh, maybe I don't want to do this, or maybe I want to do something different. I always talk about, you know, it's not a linear line. When you start, you think you want to go here, and then you get more information, and then you make a different decision, and then you get more information, and then you make a different decision, and you get more information, you make a different decision. So, and I know a lot of our, you know, upper year students, exactly what you said, Jody, they're studying things and they're doing things that they didn't think that they would be when they entered in their first year. That's great. Thank you. Jody, we'll stick with you. What skills have you learned during your hands-on learning experience that will prepare you to move into the workforce after your graduation?
Yes, so my experience was co-op placement where I worked 8 hours a week with a nonprofit, the Nature Conservancy of Canada. And during that time, I spent about 70% of the time doing an independent research project, and then 30% of the time doing field work. So for the research project, I obviously had a lot of experience doing research from my university background, but I didn't have something with context that was sort of tangible and real to apply it to. So I found that I was able to really improve my research skills by knowing what the end outcome was. And for the field work, it's very valuable to have field skills. I was able to learn a lot about seed collection and seed spreading, which is something that a lot of students only can get if they pay for the certification to learn how to do that. And so just having field skills that really sort of broaden what I am capable of doing, I'll be able to add to my resume. And I think it will make me more appealing of a candidate in the future.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yes, absolutely. Well done. Jamie, we'll head back to you, and we're just going to sort of continue on this sort of in-classroom learning experience and how it relates to skill sets and how you learn in a practical way. What is the value in completing an experiential learning opportunity and taking skills learned in the class to hands-on learning environments? So that's the first part of the question. Second part of the question is, do you think you would have been able to achieve the same knowledge level and skills by going to classes alone?
A lot of the knowledge that you learn when you're out in like doing a full-time job is both what you can do in terms of, can you work in a team? Do you have to work separate? Which is especially important in the comm sci field, where you'll have a lot of people who don't work well with others. So working in an environment where you don't necessarily interact with others, which isn't necessarily obvious when you're looking at the job description. So you might see that, you know, you're going to be a software developer and think that, okay, software developer, I'm going to be in a back room and not see anybody. When in fact, once you actually do a software development role, you realize you actually have to talk to many people to discuss, you know, with the end user, with the people who are programming it with you, and with everybody, to make sure that everyone's on the right track and all the, you know, user requirements are being met and all that kind of stuff. And then there's things that you are taught in school, especially related to computer science, and I'm sure forensics is like this too, where it's like the steps doing crime scene analysis or like testing that involved. When you're doing it in the classroom, the worst thing that happens if you do something wrong is you maybe fail the project. Whereas when you're doing it in a real life situation, you could either cost thousands of dollars in damage. You could, for like forensics, cost a case to be lost. You could, in like my field, create a huge security risk and potentially put people's personal information out. And I don't mean to scare people, but it's something that's a real concern, especially in these types of field where there's actually a lot of responsibility on someone, and you can't learn that in a classroom because the responsibility is just not there. And something else you learn, especially in comm sci, is can you actually do what you think you want to do for an extended period of time? In especially comm sci, a lot of the coding can be really repetitive. And if you're like, oh, this is great when I'm doing it in class because I do one project on it and I'm spending maybe a month on it, you are like, this is great, I can do this for my entire career. And then you are in month 2 of your career doing this 24/7 and nothing else. And you're like, hey, I can only do data entry for so long. And none of that you can learn in the classroom, because it's just not the environment that is like allows you to do that. It's a theoretical environment. At the end of the day, nobody's going to die if this goes wrong. So you can't put yourself in that position unless you experience it for yourself in an experiential learning situation.
Well said. And I think it's a very real thing for, and several years ago, 10 or 15 years ago, when we didn't have as many hands-on learning experiences, that was a big shock to a lot of students where they graduated and they, if they were lucky to find a job without sort of that hands-on learning experience, they just didn't understand that the stakes were high, that, like to your point, the cybersecurity piece is so huge. And so, to be able to experience that while you're still in university, and then you have that knowledge and you have that responsibility and you have that risk management piece, which is so huge, again, for all employers. It's such a great point. Thank you for that. Spencer, we'll go back to you. Can you describe some of the tasks and opportunities that your placement has offered? I know that you talked about a little bit about genetics work. Is there any other experiences, or you can dive a bit deeper into the genetic stuff, the stuff that you found really exciting about that?
Yeah, so I'm actually on my third of my 3 co-op placements, and each one has been very different from the other for me. My first one was entirely fieldwork based. I was out, basically my job was to go catch bullfrogs. I was working out in Crescent, BC, where they're an invasive species. And so my tasks were, I would go out 4 nights a week, work 10-hour shifts, do surveys for bullfrogs, capture them when we found them. And that was basically the entire, that was my entire job. More recently, I worked for Parks Canada, and I had a lot more field work, but I was also with working in a bigger organization, you saw the science projects they're working on. So I was doing some research with the genetics. We were doing population estimates. I was doing, wrote up some papers. And now with my current place, and I'm working with still a species at risk, but I'm doing more paper writing up stuff for the public, policies, stuff like that. And so especially with a conservation biology where work that you do changes so much seasonally, I think when you have the co-ops in the different seasons, you're able to experience all the different aspects of the job. And so for me, having the 3 different placements, I've had 3 completely different work experiences.
That's so great. And spanning like a whole bunch of skill sets. You're just talking about policy writing, so you were catching bullfrogs and then you're doing policy writing. What an enriching experience you've had thus far in your academic career. So I know we have that really, I love that example, because in a lot of the pictures that are out there for Trent University, we see lots of students in their hip waders in a swamp and collecting data. And, some people think that that's a romanticized version, but that's really true. It really does happen at Trent. You really are doing that kind of work. But in addition to that, honing in other skills that are also equally important. So the administrative side of that. That's just such a good example, Spencer. Thank you so much. Again, this next one is for you again, Spencer, and for anybody else. Jody, you had some biology stuff, so if you wanted to add anything to this, you go right ahead. So Spencer, can you walk us through a day during one of your placements, so your favorite placements, and just walk us through that day? Who did you interact with, like your supervisors? What did that network look like? What tasks were you assigned? Was there anything that surprised you? Did you have to pivot? And what learning did you achieve?
Yeah, so I'm gonna probably pull my favorite day from this past summer. I was working for Parks Canada, and we were doing a treatment of a lake to remove invasive fish. So basically, we were camping in the Alpine for 10 days, got up, had our briefing, safety briefing, did that. And then I was in charge of a small set of people who were spraying pesticide to kill the fish around the edge, while other groups were doing different treatments throughout. So it's part of a big, probably about 30 people that took to do this. And so I was in charge of a small group who were doing the backpacking in one area. I had my supervisor was the one who was in charge of me and was in charge of the project. And then there were, because it was such a big project, I was connected with people from a bunch of different national parks, people from the environment of Alberta, people in environment BC. I was able to make connections with some of the top fisheries biologists in out west and possibly in Canada. And because of these interactions, I've been able to make connections for future jobs as well, getting connections with people who are in the MNR. And I think that having the experience, I was definitely able to build the connections. And that week was kind of unique for me in that way, where there were so many different people taking part. And then you also have simpler days where I would get up, walk to my office, and then wash nets all day because we had to decontaminate our gear before we moved on to the next day. So there's two very different days, but both of the same job.
That's amazing. We've, heard from a lot of our alumni, what's the secret to sort of moving forward in your career? And one of the answers was don't be scared to do the dirty jobs. So yeah, cleaning nets all day, if that's necessary, that you need to do that in order to get the work done that you need to get done. It's a really important part of it. I really like that question, actually. Can we go through the panelists and can you walk us through sort of your favorite day on placement? Kira, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say my favorite day on placement, I worked with the Princess Margaret Cancer Clinic. And mainly what I was doing is I was working with the genetic counselors and creating pedigrees, which is a big family tree of cancer. So we go back in your family history based on who you tell us has had cancer. And we write that all out to determine the likelihood that you would have cancer. And we run different statistic models. So I would be doing that. I would interact very frequently with the different genetic counselors who worked at the clinic. Some had been working there for 20 years. Some had recently graduated counseling program. So that really allowed me to network within this clinic. And it was very, very beneficial since I am interested in genetic counseling as a future career. I would also be able to sit in on genetic counseling sessions with a variety of different patients who would have plenty of different responses to certain information. So some would be happy about their news that either they are positive or negative based on genetic tests, and some would be very upset, understandably. So it really opened me up to this wide range of emotional responses that you can get from enlightening patients to different private results. So that was very beneficial and probably one of the most interesting things I've done.
That sounds so fascinating. And did you, it's a really, and when you're working with people, obviously, we talk about leadership, we talk about teamwork, and we talk about that, but then, you're sort of diving into this idea of, when you're having to share bad news, especially sort of, forensics in your medical professional stream. Is there, any sort of training or anything that you're pursuing now to help with that? Like, are you taking any kind of psychology courses or, are you pursuing that? Or is there any supports you think that you would be pursuing to help you manage those kind of situations in the future?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually am not taking any psychology courses, but since I am in the medical professional stream, I have done some psychology studying in preparation for the MCAT. That being said, working with the MPS advisor has been really, really beneficial since we have conversations about things like this, confidentiality, delivering news, and just learning that one-on-one and talking to her has been really wonderful and helping me gain those skills. And then, yes, having the placement really was just being in there and seeing how the counselors themselves would interact with their patients really gave me that extra insight.
Yeah, again, something that you can't learn in a classroom. You have to observe it. And I really like how, you're using your network to your advantage. So you talked about your medical professional stream placement individual who's helping guide you. And again, I think that just reiterates all the supports that are available to students at Trent. We do have very traditional supports like academic skills and what have you in career space. And then, but you really do get to develop a bit of a network. You get to be close to coordinators and profs when you do take part in those placement opportunities. Well done. Jody, what's your favorite day? Jody, tell us about your favorite day on placement.
Well, my favorite day was we were actually preparing for an event with Fleming College students. So the Fleming students were going to come to the property I was working on and have sort of like a seed spreading workshop. But I was there the day before the event happened, so I got to do all the fun preparation work. At least I thought it was fun. So we got to collect a bunch of seed for them to spread and prepare it to be dried. And then once it was finished drying, we were able to sort of put it into little goodie bags that we called them, for them to sort of take a bag and spread it. And they were kind of organized into the location that we were going to spread them. But yeah, I was able to work with a couple conservation technicians that were there on sort of a contract basis, so usually 2 or 3 months at a time. And then my supervisor was a full-time worker, and I was able to get her to be a reference for me in the future too. So lots of good connections. It was a lot of fun.
Amazing. That sounds lovely. Again, with the connections, it's so important. I think that's something that, people think, well, I'm going to get this skill set and I'll pull in these resources, but it really is the network. The network is so incredibly important, for sure. Jamie, what was your favorite day on placement?
One of my favorite days on placement was a day when I got to go into the office in Toronto. The CEO and CFO of the company were there, and they both said hi to me. I had a conversation with the CFO just about how was your weekend, kind of like a regular conversation, as if I was a full-time employee and not just a co-op student. I also had meetings that day where I brought on the rest of the team I was working in to a new program that I had set up for the government regulations, and I introduced it to the director of finance, and I introduced it to another employee that directly reports to the CFO of the organization, and I helped walk through that whole team on how the new government regulations work and that kind of stuff. So I acted more as a full-time employee than as a co-op student, and I got to help iron out some of the creases in audit procedures to do with the new program that I was mostly in charge of. And I ended up getting references from both my manager and the director of finance, and recommendations on LinkedIn and that kind of stuff. So it was a really beneficial and really inspiring day as a co-op student. So
what a wonderful day. And again, with the networking, and look at those individuals you now have in your network. And, I think that I know that, students can't really see it, but from, the 30,000 foot view perspective, employers are really so incredibly welcoming and keen to have co-op students. They always want to know the story of the student. What are you studying? How's it going? It's such an exciting time in your life, and people are just there to support you. So what a wonderful day, Jamie, you had. That's so good. Okay, so the last official question here, and then I know, Kiera, you've been busy in answering some questions, so thanks so much for that. But we'll get to some of the stuff in the chat. But this is for you again, Kiera, for forensics. As a student in forensics, you have had multiple experiential learning opportunities within our labs, crime scene facility, and placement. How would you say these experiences have prepared you for your future career? Yeah, everybody's so keen on the crime scene facility. Can you talk about that? What is in there? What happens in there?
Yeah, so the crime scene facility, it was just open this past year, and we were all super excited about it. Gonna be honest, it's so cool. So not that I'm biased or anything. So what this crime scene facility has is it has multiple different rooms. One room is a seminar room, and in this room, there's tables and chairs where you will be doing a lot of the processing of different evidence and attending seminars. In this room, we also have fume hoods for different chemical reactions, depending on the courses you're going to take. We have fume hoods, we have a drying chamber for different materials, such as if you have a bloodstained item of evidence in your crime scene, you would hang it in the drying chamber because you shouldn't be working with wet blood. You'll find that out later. Then we also, another room is we have this big garage and it's this huge open space, and we have a car in it actually. So in your upper year courses, you will most likely have the opportunity, and especially in the master's program, to actually go through and process a crime scene that involves a car and go through all of the motions of that, collecting samples of evidence such as paint or fingerprints off of the windshield, off of the steering wheel, such like that. So that's very, very cool. We're happy to have that donated. Another one of the main rooms is it's this with movable walls that can be sectioned into as many as 8 different individual crime scenes. It is all made up of a very easily washable material. And the reason this is important is if you make it up into your 4th year and even during some of your first years, there will sometimes be blood in a crime scene that we need to wash away really easily. So your professors and your TAs are going to stage these crime scenes that you then go in and you process them like you are a real forensic crime scene technician. So you go in and you're like, oh my God, look at this scene. There is blood and there's some bullets. Oh, sorry, you can't say blood. It's red substance. Let me clarify. I apologize. You haven't done the tests yet. So you go in, you process these scenes, and it's a really, really great opportunity to have that hands-on learning. You have a notebook with you all the time where you're writing absolutely everything you're doing, all of your observations, the evidence you collect. You also learn about things like crime scene photography. So you take photographs, overall mid-range close-up of these crime scenes and of the evidence, so you can process those and work from them. So it's really, really great. And then at the end of all this, in most of your crime scene courses, you do a mock trial or you present your evidence in some sort of way. So everything you've learned in that hands-on experience in this crime scene facility, in these labs, you can then present as though you are an expert witness, which most likely if you go the sense of crime scene expert, so if you're working with the police or with the Canadian Centre of Forensic Science, you might eventually be called as an expert witness. So you learn in our courses, we do these mock trials to present our knowledge and what we learned, the evidence we collected and stuff like that. So really great opportunity. There's also an outdoor space for an outdoor crime scene. You learn how to process really large areas and different techniques used there. So yeah, it's really awesome.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Again, with that whole romantic idea of like the hip waders on and collecting samples, it really is. And people think about forensics like that's, and then we just got oh, wow, that's so cool. It is really cool. Okay, gonna take a look at some of these questions here. Panelists, did you have anything else while I look at these questions that you wanted to add about your experience or, how, like what you thought you would be doing and you're doing something completely different? Any sort of, any extra things that you want to say before we get into these questions?
I think one thing that I've noticed is, especially when you're looking for placements, don't be afraid to travel. Not just because there's not something directly where you are doesn't mean there's not a great opportunity. For me, 2 of my 3 placements were out in BC. The last one's up in Chalk River, 3 hours away, and the Chalk River is the closest one to me. I think being able to travel, being able to let yourself travel allows you to have access to so many more opportunities than you would if you just stayed in the small area close to where you live.
That is an excellent point. And I think, there's a lot of individuals that sort of get caught up in the logistics of, oh, but how am I going to get there? And what am I going to do? And where am I going to live? And I think, this is the time when you're a university student and you're doing, you're wanting to open up all the possible doors for yourself. So to travel, to do that is absolutely key. So well said, Spencer.
And to add to that, yeah. I know I'm not like most people, but for a few of those positions, I found out my housing about a week before my position started. It's just something you have to kind of expect that there's going to be uncertainties, but usually in most cases things work themselves out, and the people you're working for are always going to be on your side and working to make it work once you get hired.
Absolutely. There's again, you've got to take, we hear this from alumni all the time in their career paths. You've got to take some risks. If that's what you want and you want to go do that and you think that's exciting, then you've got to go ahead and take a bit of risk to get there because that's what you want. And it sounds so cliche, but your gut instincts will always lead you in the right direction. So if you're thinking, oh, I really want to do that, then you just go ahead and do that, and everything kind of works itself out. And you're right, there's so much support, as we were saying, for Trent, for students, and Trent students in particular, with the relationships that we have with employers and placement coordinators. Kira, go ahead.
So you just mentioned speaking with supervisors. I think that's a really, really good place to start. Talk with your profs about opportunities. For example, there's opportunities such as NSERC USRA grants, which are undergraduate student research awards that you can get in your 3rd or 4th year. And these allow you to the summer for 16 weeks fully paid and work in a laboratory setting or in a field setting. There's so many different options. There's options for sciences and humanities, and you can get that hands-on learning. That's so, so important. I did this past summer in Dr. Paul Wilson's lab, doing something that I never really thought I'd be doing. I don't really know very much going into it, or I didn't know about mice and lynx and their genetics and DNA. And now I know plenty of it, and I'm doing my thesis on it. So these opportunities for hands-on learning, they might just crop up, and just go for them. They're so interesting, and you might find a new niche that you never would have expected.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do see a question here. I don't think it's been answered, but kind of building off what you were saying, Kira, everything you've been saying. So this question is, what kind of experiential learning is available in forensic science? So I think in addition to the crime scene house, what other things are available, maybe, and it's something you've taken part in or that you know of, would be great. And then what years does all of this take place? Is it like you get some sort of hands-on every year, or is it just in upper years? What do you need to do to prepare? If you could talk to that a little bit.
Absolutely. So it's every single year. It is not just every year. You get something 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year. 1st year, you come right in. 1st semester, you do you do your Canadian Justice course, where you do mock trials, again, learning that law side, because forensic science is the application of science to law. So you learn that law right away, that really good background. And then 2nd semester, you have Introduction to Crime Scene Investigation with Dr. Barry Seville, great prof. So you do this course, and that is your first introduction to the crime scene. You are going in, you're dressing head to toe in gear. You are wearing a full-on bunny suit. And like I said, you're in the crime scene facility, you're processing those scenes, and you're learning how to take notes and work as an investigator. So that's really great. 2nd year, same thing. You're still back in the lab. You learn how to process these larger outdoor scenes, like I mentioned. You would do a little bit more examination of the actual evidence after collection. So more preservation, chain of custody, and then processing afterwards back in the lab setting. Additionally, then in 3rd year, same thing. Your other CSI course, a little bit more hands-on. 3rd year is when you present your evidence in a sort of mock trial expert witness way after collecting them. You also have the opportunity in your 3rd year for a placement. So a placement, let me clarify, is not co-op. This is not a co-op. You are still in school, and it either happens in the winter semester of your 3rd year or between the summer of your 3rd and 4th year, depending on when your placement works out for and your employer. That being said, the placement is not open to everyone. It is an application into the placement stream of the course. So you will have to apply at the end of your 2nd year, but these placements have really great opportunities, and our amazing placement coordinator, Karen McQuaid-Smith, is more than happy to get you set up. She has so many contacts in a plethora of fields. So as I mentioned, I worked with Princess Margaret Hospital, but that's kind of unusual because most people don't plan to go the healthcare setting. We have so many contacts in police stations. We have the Center of Forensic Science, Border Patrol, Border Service agencies, funeral homes, so many different opportunities where you get that hands-on experiential learning, which is really, really great. So that's an awesome opportunity. And then 4th year, you don't have a technical crime scene course, but there are different courses that allow you to work in the crime scene. So last semester I took Bloodstained pattern analysis. So basically that course, I learned how to splash sheet blood around and determine what actually caused that blood, different impacts, different bloodstain patterns, and then clean it up, of course. That was the hardest part. So yeah, lots of hand-on. We have a ballistics course, so that's really interesting. Lots of stuff, lots of hands-on learning. It's a good time. And if you have more questions about it, feel free to message forensicscience@trentu.ca, who is our AAA, our academic assistant, or you can email the Forensic Science Society, which is the student-run club on campus, and I will drop the emails in the chat in a minute.
Amazing. Thank you, Kira, so much. For the biology people, so maybe Jody and Spencer, you can talk to this. Are the biology field placements through a co-op only? So I know, Spencer, you're in the co-op program, conservation biology, but I think the student's asking about, is there other opportunities not within the co-op program for field placements?
There definitely is. There are the Ontario field courses. I think it's the Ontario field biology courses.
Yeah.
That are offered, that have both courses in Ontario, Canada, and internationally. I participated that in the summer after my first year. So that gives you, it's a 2-week course. It's a condensed field hands-on study that you're doing. And there's also, similar to the co-op, there is a placement stream. Jody, I believe, did you do the placement?
I did a placement with the environmental science program, but if I'm correct, I think it's the same sort of process for biology as well.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. And if so, it counts as half a credit for your degree.
That's great.
Also, sorry, I just wanted to add on, Kira mentioned earlier the research grants that you can get, and you can get those for basically any program. So that applies to the environmental science and biology programs as well. And then you can get fieldwork experience by completing your research project. So it's good to look into too.
Amazing. We had a couple of questions about medical professional stream. So I know, Kira, you touched on it briefly, but could you just sort of give a brief overview of the stream, medical professional stream, what it means, what you need to do as a student?
Yeah, absolutely. So the MPS is a non-academic stream. What that means is you don't have courses for the MPS. You take your normal courses for your normal degree. So I'm taking forensic biology. I take all forensic biology courses and whatever electives I want. But for the MPS, it's non-academic. So you have the option to go to seminars, workshops to help you in your pathway to medicine. And medicine doesn't just mean you are going to med school. Medicine, healthcare, just in general, there are so many different pathways you can go to. You can go to health promotion, social justice with respect to health. You can go dentistry, veterinary medicine. So many different facets of medicine is enveloped in the MPS, and they have different shops for really anything. I know they have mock DATs that happened the other day, which is the test you need to write to go into dentist school. And we also have, as I mentioned previously, Linda Sweeting. She is the academic coordinator for the MPS, and she will sit down with you one-on-one all the time to talk about literally anything, whether it's your schoolwork, your classes, your path to medicine, your idea. If you're not sure really what you want to do, but you know it's somewhere in healthcare, she can help streamline that and help you figure out what you want to do. She also has plenty of contacts in the healthcare field, as well as volunteer opportunities. She knows plenty of people in the community where you can go and get that volunteer experience and work with the community, which is super beneficial. Just in general, volunteering is great, but especially if you are aiming for a medical or healthcare field, doing these volunteer experiences is super beneficial. It'll look really great on your resume and your autobiographical sketch for applications. So yeah, the MPS really gives you a boost up. Additionally, the final thing is with the MPS, we have really great partnerships with some Caribbean medical schools that give you entry when you have finished your 4th year. They also have, I believe, SGU, St. George's University down in Grenada, has a veterinary medicine program. I don't know too much about that, so your best bet would either be to go look on the MPS website, which we will relink, or talk to Linda Sweeting directly at mps@trentu.ca.
Amazing. Thanks for that, Kira. Just going to a forensics question. So are any of the forensics, actually, this could be for the panel, with the exception of co-op, is there any placements that you've been a part of where you've been paid for that placement? So Kira, any of the forensics placements, have you been paid for any of that? Is that
Yeah, so I personally haven't. My placement with the hospital paid completely. That being said, we do have some placements that are paid. So I know if you work with the Border Services Agency, you get paid for, I believe, an entire summer's worth of work. The placement kind of turns into a job. So it's a win-win both ways, and you get paid. So that's definitely a bonus. Yeah, so there are opportunities like that where you can get paid, but some placements are unpaid.
That's great. Lovely.
Yes.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Add
Amy.
on that there are more than just experiential learning opportunities with like specifically designed through the program. I know specifically in comm sci, there'll be several instances where the profs can reach out to you and be like, we need some help bringing up the accessibility for our online courses. Are you willing to help out with that? Those could be paid or not paid, which still gives you that like experiential learning without an actual program, and you just have to keep your eye open for those opportunities. It's good to, you know, keep in touch with your profs, make sure you work hard, that kind of stuff, because they'll reach out and they'll say like, we need help, or I need help with this research project of mine. Would you be willing to either get paid or volunteer to help out with that? So it doesn't just need to be, you know, you need to apply to one of these programs or anything like that. There's also opportunities at Trent unique to, you know, a prof will just say like, hey, can you help me out with this?
Amazing. Thank you for that. That's really good. Yeah, there's all kinds of things that, you know, are not captured in the academic calendar that can just happen. I mean, for instance, this evening, you know, we're like, who are some really great students we can get a hold of that can do, you know, that can take part in this program. And so I know that a lot of professors are, you know, constantly looking for student help. There's a project that comes up where there's something research or there's an extra help needed. So it's such a good point, Jamie. Thank you. Well, I think that we have done a pretty good job with all of those questions. For everybody in the audience, again, remember, because you've attended tonight, your name has been entered to a draw to win a free first year tuition. So good luck with that, everyone. That's quite a gift. And then also the evenings program continues. So from 7 to 8 p.m., we have 2 sessions. We have a good tour of our science facilities and labs. And a session about studying abroad. I know there's lots of questions in the career session about that study abroad. So check that out if you want to learn more about that. Following that, from 8 to 9 p.m., please feel free to join for the virtual tour of the Peterborough and Durham campuses. So that would be lovely for you to actually see what those beautiful campuses look like. And then also any other questions that we didn't get to this evening, please feel free to access that live chat. You can go back to the Experiential Learning Night website and access that live chat. Just looking at some more questions coming in here. What year do you get to choose a particular field in forensic science which you want to specialize in? Oh, that's a great question. So is there a point in time when you've got to make a decision, Kira, of sort of where you want to go?
So let me just clarify this a little bit. When you apply to Trent, you apply into one of technically 4 programs, either one of the 3 core programs, forensic science, forensic biology, or forensic chemistry, or the joint major program, which is forensics joint with pretty much anything else except for one of the professional programs like nursing, but you can do psychology, anthropology, computer science, environmental science. Those are some big ones. And that's when you initially choose what you want to have your major in. However, we also have others. We have one specialization in law and policing that you technically don't declare until 4th year when you're graduating, but you would need to take certain courses throughout your university degree to make sure you are filling out all the prerequisites to specialize in law and policing. Aside from that, if you want to go into forensic toxicology, that's a career goal that has nothing to do with our actual your major or specializations or anything.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to touch on that one question.
Yeah.
So you can technically change your major, but it's a full major change. It's not a quick swap. So if you were going from one of the 3 core programs to the other one, it's still a reapplication sort of thing. So in first year, say you're in forensic science and you want to switch into forensic biology, you have to apply through My Trent. There is a required admission percentage that you need for your academic average. As well, having the prerequisites is very beneficial. So it's fairly hard to switch from either biology or science or from normal forensic science into forensic chemistry, since the first year courses are very different. But switching from forensic science into forensic biology is much easier because the first year courses are pretty much the same. And then switching into the joint major from core is easy, but the other direction is fairly difficult, again, based on the different first year courses. So keep that in mind. If you want more information, same thing, please talk to forensic science at trentu.ca.
Lovely. I think what we'll do is we're going to wrap up here, but what I was going to ask the panelists is one final question. If you can leave an impression with these prospective Trent students from your perspective of what it's like to learn and to get that hands-on learning experience at Trent, and just your Trent experience thus far in your academic career, if you could just sort of have some nice parting words for these folks, and we'll wrap up with that. So Spencer, I will put you on the spot first.
I think it's definitely given me a lot of self-motivation to find out what I'm passionate about, and give me the opportunity to go and find those opportunities and give me that motivation to do that.
Amazing. Thanks, Spencer. Jody.
I would just say I'm going to give a little bit of advice. Whatever program you end up in, it's just important for you to talk to people, whether that be your peers, your professors, your TAs. Just talk to people, find out what it is that you're passionate about, and you'll be able to find some sort of experience that nurtures that.
Amazing. Thanks, Jody. Jamie.
My partings would be, regardless of if you get into a co-op or you just go into regular streams, you'll always have opportunities at Trent to experience experiential learning without having to get into a defined program.
Yeah.
And I found that those opportunities help define you both, you know, what you want to do in your future career, and help define you as a person and where you want to go. And one of the nice things about Trent is when you decide that you want to go in a different path, it's very easy to switch to that path.
Absolutely. Well said. And Kira, you get the last word.
Awesome. So my biggest thing would probably be do what you're passionate about. Don't do something that you think you have to do or other people want you to do. Do what you want to do. And honestly, everything will stem from there. The grades will come, you'll be happier, you'll meet people with like-minded interests, which is always really great. You'll network. So really do what you want to do, and you'll get those opportunities where you can find out, oh, maybe you actually don't want to do it. So switch to something else you're interested in. Like Jamie mentioned, it's fairly easy to switch a trend. So just find something you like and go with that.
Wonderful. Well said. With that, panelists, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your very busy schedules to speak to these prospective students. Your insights and stories were incredible, very inspiring. You're wonderful ambassadors, Trent. We're so pleased and we're so proud of you all. And I'm sure that you've inspired a lot of people today to come to Trent and to have similar experiences. So with that, I bid you all adieu. Have a great evening. For those in the audience, please, this is not the end of the road for you. However, we've got a whole wonderful evening planned of tours and more information. Don't forget about that live chat in case you do think of a question afterwards. And thank you so much for your time as well. And we all hope to see you on campus next year. Bye, everybody. Thank you.